The CEO's daughter sat alone at her graduation, smiling silently as everyone else cheered, until a stranger signed "Congratulations." No one noticed the CEO's deaf daughter at her graduation, except a single dad who knew the language of silence. She couldn't hear the applause, and her father didn't notice her smile, until someone stepped forward to speak in the only words she understood. Curiosity/intriguing hooks. Everyone ignored her at graduation, but one man saw her in a way no one else could, and changed her life forever. The CEO's daughter was invisible to the crowd until a single dad made her feel seen. A quiet graduation, a lonely girl, one man's decision to reach out, and a world of difference. Short punchy hooks for social media/video thumbnails. Alone at graduation until a single dad spoke her language. No one noticed her until he signed "You Matter." The CEO ignored her, but one stranger didn't. The graduation hall buzzed with excitement, applause echoing off the high ceilings. Caps flew through the air, cameras flashed, and proud parents cheered for their children. Yet, amid all the celebration, one girl sat silently, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Emily Whitmore, the CEO's daughter, wore her pristine white gown like a shield. She smiled faintly, but her eyes told a different story, a story of being overlooked even on the day meant to celebrate her. Her father, Richard Whitmore, was too busy chatting with board members, taking calls, and posing for photos to notice the ache in his own daughter's eyes. No one came to sit beside her. No one whispered congratulations. The crowd of well-wishers moved around her like she was invisible, and the echoes of laughter and applause only made the silence feel heavier. From the back of the hall, Daniel Miller watched. A single dad, balancing work and life, he had accompanied his daughter, Lily, who was also deaf, to the ceremony. But his attention kept drifting to Emily. There was something about the quiet sadness behind her gentle smile that tugged at him. Daniel had spent years unnoticed in boardrooms and offices, sweeping floors, fixing spills, and silently observing the world of wealth and power. He knew what it was like to feel invisible, and he couldn't bear the thought of another child sitting alone, unseen. He caught Lily glancing at him. She knew his thoughts. "She's all alone," Lily signed softly. Daniel nodded, his decision made. "Then she won't be alone for long," he signed back. As the ceremony continued, Daniel rose from his seat and began weaving through the crowd. Every step toward Emily was fueled by something stronger than politeness. It was a deep, unspoken understanding of loneliness and the desire to be seen. Emily's world was about to change, not with words, but with a gesture that spoke louder than any speech, applause, or ceremony ever could. From the back row of the crowded auditorium, Daniel watched the graduates toss their caps into the air. Cheers erupted, camera flashes sparkled. A sea of joy. But amid all that noise, his eyes caught on her. A girl in a white gown sat still, hands folded, smiling faintly at something no one else could see. No one ran up to her. No one hugged her. The people who passed offered polite nods but moved on to their own celebrations. Daniel felt a strange tug in his chest. Maybe it was because he knew what loneliness felt like. Maybe it was because of his own daughter, Lily, who was also deaf, and who used to sit just like that at her old school, before she found friends who understood her world of quiet. He looked closer. The girl's name was on the program, Emily Whitmore. Whitmore, as in the CEO of Whitmore Industries. The name was plastered on every billboard in town. He'd cleaned floors in their office tower for years, unseen and unimportant. But now, he couldn't just walk away. "Dad." Lily tugged on his sleeve. She had noticed Emily too. "She's alone," Lily signed quietly. Daniel nodded. "Let's go say hi." They made their way through the crowd, Daniel guiding Lily with a gentle hand. When they reached Emily, she looked up, startled. Her eyes darted nervously between them, expecting pity, maybe mockery. Instead, Lily smiled and signed, "Congratulations." Emily froze. Then her expression shifted, confusion melting into disbelief, then pure joy. Slowly, she lifted her hands and replied, fingers trembling slightly. "You know sign language?" Daniel signed back. "Of course. My daughter's deaf too." For the first time that evening, Emily's smile was real, wide, bright, unguarded. She laughed silently, the kind of laugh that comes straight from the heart. The noise of the crowd faded. It was just 3 people, signing in a quiet world all their own. Everyone was cheering. Daniel signed. "I figured you deserved someone to cheer for you too." Emily blinked rapidly, eyes glistening. "Thank you," she signed slowly. "No one ever." Her voice cracked. She didn't finish. Lily reached out and took her hand. No words, no pity, just warmth. For a moment, Daniel saw something in Emily's eyes, something aching and old. A loneliness too heavy for someone so young. Across the courtyard, cameras flashed again. This time around her father, the CEO, laughing with business partners, not even glancing toward his daughter. Daniel clenched his jaw. He'd seen that man before, standing in a boardroom, giving speeches about family values. And yet, his own daughter sat here forgotten. But Daniel wasn't going to let that moment end in silence. He signed again. "Come with us. We're going for ice cream. My treat." Emily hesitated, then nodded. And for the first time that night, she stood up, not as the CEO's forgotten daughter, but as a girl who finally felt seen. The little ice cream shop at the corner of Maple Street glowed like a lantern in the night. Its windows fogged with warmth, laughter spilling from families inside. When Emily walked in beside Daniel and Lily, she hesitated, as though she wasn't sure she belonged in a place like this. Daniel noticed. "Don't worry," he signed with a grin. "They don't charge extra for CEO's daughters." Emily's eyes widened, then she covered her mouth to hide a giggle. Lily grinned and pulled her toward the counter. The 2 girls stood in front of the glass case, their faces reflected in the colors of strawberry, chocolate, and mint. "Which one?" Lily asked in sign. Emily looked uncertain. I don't know. I've never," she stopped. Her hands faltered. "Never what?" Daniel asked gently. "Never been out for ice cream like this. Just for fun." Daniel's heart twisted. Not even once. He glanced toward the door, where outside, the world was still buzzing about the powerful CEO who had built empires and changed markets, a man who had apparently never paused long enough to buy his daughter a simple cone. Then tonight, Daniel signed, "We fixed that." They sat together by the window. Lily taught Emily how to make a tiny ice cream sign, curling her fingers like a scoop, and the 2 girls laughed silently, their joy rippling like sunlight through glass. Daniel watched them, smiling to himself. There was something sacred about silence when it wasn't lonely, when it was shared. He had spent years sweeping halls where no one knew his name, feeling invisible. Yet here, in this quiet corner, he felt more seen than ever. Emily turned to him. "Why did you come talk to me?" she asked in sign, her movements small, uncertain. Daniel thought for a moment. Then he signed back slowly. "Because I know what it's like when people see you but never really see you." Her eyes shimmered again, soft with understanding. Lily leaned across the table and signed. "You should come to our house sometime. Dad makes pancakes better than anyone." Emily laughed silently, shaking her head, but her smile said maybe. They finished their ice cream, the night outside turning quiet and blue. When Daniel drove them home, he noticed Emily staring at the stars through the car window. Then, for the first time, she whispered, her voice barely audible, fragile from disuse. "Thank you." Daniel's throat tightened. He didn't need to hear the word to feel it. He just smiled and signed back. "You're welcome, kiddo." Neither of them noticed the black luxury car that had pulled up across the street, its headlights off, or the man inside watching them with a frown that slowly turned to guilt. The next morning, Daniel was back at his job, mopping the marble floors of Whitmore Tower. The same floors he'd cleaned for almost 7 years. He'd always walked these halls with his head down, invisible among executives in expensive suits. But today, something felt different. His heart was lighter. The memory of Emily laughing with Lily at the ice cream shop replayed in his mind like a quiet miracle. Then the elevator doors slid open and everything changed. Daniel Miller, a sharp voice called. He froze. That voice. It was Richard Whitmore, the CEO himself. Tall, impeccably dressed, face carved with the kind of confidence only money could buy, and eyes burning with something Daniel couldn't quite read. "Sir?" Daniel said, setting his mop aside. Richard stepped closer. "My daughter. You were with her last night." Daniel's stomach tightened. "Yes, sir. She was alone after the ceremony. My daughter, and I know what you did," Richard interrupted. "She told me everything." Daniel braced himself. He'd seen men like Richard before, powerful, proud, allergic to anyone touching their perfect worlds. He expected anger, maybe threats. But what he saw instead shocked him. The CEO's voice cracked slightly. "She smiled last night," he said. "Actually smiled. I haven't seen that since her mother died." Silence filled the room. Not awkward, but heavy with truth. Daniel said softly, "She's a good kid, sir. She just needed someone to listen, even if it's not with ears." Richard looked away, eyes glistening. "I never learned sign language. I told myself I was too busy, that I'd hire tutors, translators. But every year, she pulled further away." Daniel hesitated, then signed a simple phrase. "It's not too late." Richard frowned. "What did you say?" Daniel repeated it slowly, hand steady this time. "It's not too late." For the first time, the powerful CEO looked small, not in stature, but in spirit. Like a man realizing how much he'd lost while chasing everything else. He swallowed hard. "Will you teach me?" Daniel blinked, caught off guard. "Teach you?" "Yes," Richard said quietly. "Teach me how to talk to my daughter." A lump rose in Daniel's throat. He nodded once. "Of course." That afternoon, in the same office where Richard usually closed million-dollar deals, Daniel placed a small notebook on the desk and began the first lesson. He showed him how to say, "Hello, I love you, and I'm proud of you." The CEO's hands trembled as he signed each word, slowly, awkwardly, but with a father's desperation. When Emily arrived later that day, she paused at the doorway, eyes wide. Her father looked up, smiled nervously, and signed, "Hi, Emily." Her lips parted, and tears welled instantly. She dropped her bag, rushed to him, and threw her arms around his chest. No sound filled the room, only the silent rhythm of forgiveness. Daniel turned away, blinking fast. It wasn't his place to watch. But as he quietly left the office, he felt something deep inside him. The quiet joy of a man who had just witnessed love finally learn its own language. Winter sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the Whitmore family home. Emily stood in the living room, her fingers tracing the edge of the family portrait, one that now felt less distant, less cold. Across the room, her father, Richard, practiced signing under Daniel's patient guidance. His hands were still awkward, but his movements carried sincerity, the kind of sincerity that words alone could never capture. Lily bounced around happily, showing Emily how to sign the silly phrases she had learned in school. "Ice cream. Funny. Goofball." Emily laughed silently, her eyes sparkling with delight. Finally, Daniel sat back in a chair, watching the scene unfold. He felt a quiet pride, not in himself, but in the bond he had helped nurture. Richard stepped toward Emily, hands trembling slightly. "Emily," he signed slowly, "I'm sorry I wasn't there. I didn't know how." Emily's lips quivered, then she signed back. "It's okay, Dad. I understand." He took a deep breath and signed again. "I love you. I'm proud of you." For the first time in years, Emily's smile wasn't just polite or hidden. It was bright, warm, unguarded. She rushed into his arms, and this time, it wasn't just silent laughter. There were tears. There were hugs. There was love finally finding its voice. Daniel watched Lily scamper off to fetch a board game, leaving him alone for a moment with the Whitmores. Richard looked at him, eyes glistening. "Daniel, thank you," he signed. "For everything." Daniel shook his head, smiling. "You did the hard part, sir. You showed up. I just helped you speak in the right language." Emily peeked around the corner. "Daniel," she signed. "You'll stay for dinner, right?" He chuckled. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." And as the family gathered around the table, father, daughter, and the little girl who had brought them together, Daniel felt a warm certainty settle over him. Some connections weren't made with words. They were made with understanding, patience, and the courage to truly see someone. That Christmas, the Whitmore mansion wasn't just filled with decorations or expensive gifts. It was filled with laughter, with signing, with love, the kind of love that spoke even louder than words. Outside, snow began to fall gently, blanketing the city in white. Inside, hearts were full, bridges had been built, and a new language of love had been learned.